Think about any time that you've enjoyed playing Street Fighter, any time at all, and it's probably been in one of two environments. Sitting on your butt and practicing combos at home, or going to the arcade and playing on a faulty cabinet running at 15 frames a second. Either way, the experience will most likely be locked within the confines of a bulky piece of machinery that reminds you of better times. Anyway, I was doing some cleaning the other day and found my old 3DS. Luckily, my 15-year-old copy of Super Street Fighter 4 was inside of the cartridge slot, and it got me wondering. Remember when Capcom used to release portable Street Fighter games? Well, if we include Street Fighter 6 on the Switch too, then I guess they still kind of do. But I'm talking about the old Nintendo ports that couldn't be played on home consoles. You've got to remember that this was a period where arcade-perfect home conversions were a rarity, and with how Shigeru Miyamoto's lovely little plumber had personally slaughtered the competition, the former Hanafuda company dominated the handheld gaming market. Taking notice of such a lucrative opportunity, Capcom thought it wise to bring their extraordinarily popular Street Fighter franchise onto these devices. Okay, in case it wasn't obvious, that's what we're here to explore, so grab your favorite can of Akuma Red Bull as we explore the portable world of Street Fighter.
This is Methods.
Okay, so you know how Street Fighter 2 was known for its colorful graphics, catchy sound design, and 6-button layout? Thanks to the original Game Boy having the same hardware as a potato, all of these qualities were unfortunately stripped away for its very first handheld port. By looking at this wonderful box art with Ryu's lifeless corpse in the corner, you might assume that we're looking at a conversion of vanilla Street Fighter 2, but this is actually a bizarre combination of Champion Edition and the new challenges. 9 characters make up the roster, with 3 of the 4 Kings of Shadowloo being playable, although E Honda, Dalsim, and Vega were sent home prematurely. Putting aside the obvious visual and audio downgrades required to fit this entire arcade game onto a tiny cartridge, its 2-button control scheme is wildly different to what fans had grown accustomed to. Instead of every type of attack being blessed with their own unique buttons, punches and kicks have now been relegated to the B and A commands respectively. Pressing them normally leads to light attacks, slightly holding them results in a medium, and holding them for even longer gives us heavy attacks. Calling these controls finicky would be like calling Rufus annoying, i.e. it's all the time. In the time that I spent subjecting my eyes to this nightmarish color palette and frame rate, I was often bashing my head against the wall when trying to determine the timing difference between mediums and heavies. It often doesn't work the way you want it to. However, once you jump over these hurdles, you realize that the core gameplay of Street Fighter 2 has surprisingly been kept intact. Motion inputs generally work fine, and the idea of using space control and poking to your advantage is just as fun as ever. There's even a survival mode and animated character endings for some sweet replay value. There are little to no reasons to play this port nowadays, outside of its novelty I suppose, but for 90s kids who wanted to throw out fireballs on the bus ride to school, it could have been a lot worse, honestly. Fast forwarding to the early 2000s brings us to the iconic Game Boy Advance, one of the best handheld systems ever. With 4 buttons, a full color screen, and a built-in therapist for when you lost your Pokemon, it's no wonder that Capcom was showering the GBA with more love than you can imagine. Seriously, they were releasing games left, right, and center. It was madness. Unlike the outsourced version of Alpha 3 that was developed in Britain, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo Revival was created in-house over in Japan. As its name is so long that it would summon a demon if you said it in the wrong area, this is pure Street Fighter through and through. Using the newfound L&R buttons, heavy attacks now rest comfortably under your index fingers, although lights and mediums still function under the press and hold mechanic. And if you're having issues performing motion inputs, inputting this cheat code during a match will enable 1-button special moves. In the process of wanting to make the game feel smoother on the GBA's D-pad, Capcom inadvertently brought modern controls to Street Fighter long before it became the industry standard. Talk about innovation. More importantly, I'm sure you've noticed the plethora of aesthetic changes Revival brings to the table, especially the new stages. In addition to brand new arenas created solely for this game, the worlds of Alpha 2 and Third Strike have now been crammed into Street Fighter 2, and now that I think about it, it's sort of like a chaotic good version of Capcom Fighting Jam. Yeah, I guess it's a little bit jarring to have a fresh set of character renders and HUD elements, but they all come together nicely in the end, even if some of the sprites have been squished beyond recognition. There's even a training mode and offline multiplayer via Nintendo's link cable accessory. Not bad. Despite the idea of a GBA exclusive Super Turbo conversion sounding like the result of way too many 196s, the final product turned out exceptionally well. In fact, I would go as far as to say that ST Revival is one of the better portable fighting games I've played in a long time, serving as a wonderful follow-up to its older brother on the original Game Boy. Quickly, think of an iconic fighting game announcer. If you thought of the beast of a man who said, "Go for broke," or "Triumph or die," then you get an A+, because Alpha 3 is exactly what we're talking about. Released a good 4 years after its vanilla arcade version, Street Fighter Alpha 3 Upper was, at one point, the definitive version of the game. Sure, it may have lacked some of the home port's extra bells and whistles, but its 3 new characters and suite of unlockables made it very easy for players to sink their teeth into the R.Mika sandwich. Contrary to what I expected going in, Revival's tap and hold input system has been thrown out the window, as pressing both light and heavy buttons will now result in a medium. I respect the designers for inventing a new way to handle inputs, but this takes a lot of getting used to, and I never fully adjusted to it. Plus, it makes extended Vism combos that utilize lots of medium attacks quite tricky to pull off. As such, I feel that this game is far more executionally demanding than Super Turbo Revival. However, if you're just looking to kill some time every now and then with your favorite fighters, then it's honestly hard to find any major drawbacks. The system's minuscule amount of RAM resulted in sprite work suffering from a significant reduction in resolution, but what can you do? Developed by Crawfish Interactive and their extremely jovial logo that brings me great happiness, Alpha 3 Upper is a real testament to strong game design within the confines of limited hardware. Dropping into another studio's Dreamcast codebase and smoothly converting it over to work on the Game Boy Advance could not have been a cakewalk, but lo and behold, Crawfish managed to pull it off. Every little detail, down to the way the ism selection has a seizure when you scroll through it, to the way the meter flashes with anticipation, just begging you to spend it already, has been put front and center. Visually, the game is awesome, but I'd be lying if I said its audio didn't make me want to pull out the old Windows audio mixer. Some of the 32-bit musical compositions are pretty cute. Whereas others feel like they're biting my ears off, Mike Tyson style. Plus, the announcer is nowhere to be found. He's been removed from the game completely, and it feels so empty without him. Despite all of this, I have grown somewhat of a newfound appreciation for Upper, even if it's not the best handheld port anymore. That would go to Alpha 3 Max on PSP, as it looks, sounds, and plays better, keeps everything found on the Nintendo version, brings back World Tour mode, and restores the announcer to his former glory. The Capcom Fighting Collection 2's inclusion of Upper's arcade release may have invalidated its old-school GBA port, but if you don't want to lug a Switch around in public and you can't get access to Alpha 3 Max, this isn't a bad option to consider. Man, I kind of miss being a kid in the early 2010s. It was a time of bizarre internet memes, flash games, and Call of Duty lobbies that pushed the boundaries of good taste. Those were the days. One of my most cherished memories as a wee 7-year-old was going to EB Games and picking up a copy of Super Street Fighter 4 3D Edition, the very same copy I showed you earlier. I could speak for weeks about the amazing memories I've had playing this port, and now that I'm an adult, it's still by far my favorite handheld fighting game. It's not even close. What still blows me away is that Capcom managed to cram the full console game with 0 performance issues onto a device they had no development experience with. Every fighter, stage, mode, and general feature you were having fun with at home was now in the palm of your hand. In addition to having the stages be static images and reducing the overall polygon count with the character models, I guarantee that they used Japanese black magic to make it all work. Because the 3DS has 4 face buttons and 2 bumpers, the classic 6-button layout returns with a vengeance, leading to the most authentic Street Fighter port we've analysed thus far. At least in theory, because the iconic touch panels on the lower touchscreen completely break any sense of fairness one would expect. After mapping any attack your heart desires to one of the 4 panels, you can perform it simply by touching its associated area. This doesn't sound too crazy, but it allows you to bypass charge timings, have 1-button 720s, and whatever else you can think of. Back when 3DS online play was still a thing, rest easy, old friend, I remember running into so many Guile players who would use instant sonic booms and flash kicks out of forward movement. There's a reason why these moves are supposed to be locked behind a charge motion, I'll say that. Additionally, 3D Edition boasts all 840 combo trials found within its console counterpart, as well as a brand new figurine mode. By making use of your hard-earned Street Pass coins, you could form a team of virtual action figures and have them battle other players as you walked past them in the real world. As none of my friends were into fighting games when I was younger, I never had the chance to try this out for myself, but I do love how Capcom was willing to experiment with the system's social elements. Even with Ultra Street Fighter 2 punching its way onto the market a mere 6 years later, I still believe that this game is the definitive portable Street Fighter experience. Now that I've mentioned Street Fighter 2's very ultra update, it's about time I go online and finally buy a copy of this game. $200! Not content with having a mere 7 game updates under their belt, Capcom decided to freshen up the arcade release of Super Turbo with new mechanics, include HD remixes, Americanized art style, and pop it on the Switch of all systems. On the surface, you would probably assume that this is a quick and dirty update meant to capitalize on a highly anticipated console, but there are some interesting and kind of bizarre new balance changes thrown into the mix. Reversals are easier to perform, throws can now be broken, Akuma is a regular fighter on the select screen, and the 2 newcomers, Evil Ryu and Violent Ken, dominate the tier list with their insane damage output. In fact, Ken's Linkin Park phase has been borrowed from SVC Chaos, that weird SNK vs Capcom game that's sort of like the black sheep of both companies. On the topic of melanated farm animals, the term applies beautifully to Ultra Street Fighter 2, as its modes were surely the result of throwing stuff at the wall to see what worked. Buddy Battle, which is a renamed version of Alpha 3's Dramatic Battle, lets you and a friend team up to fight a CPU-controlled boss character. Color Edit lets you embrace your inner Da Vinci as you make Chun-Li's outfit your canvas, and the Way of the Hado is a first-person brawler that reuses SF4 assets. The idea is to physically stand up, grab the Joy-Cons, and act out Ryu's special moves to defeat an army of nameless goons. As someone who loves strange bonus content, I've always enjoyed the idea behind this mode. It's such a fresh and unique concept that took everyone by surprise. The reality, however, leaves much to be desired, as not only do the motion controls fail to properly register half the time, it also just gets quite repetitive. In retrospect, Ultra Street Fighter 2 has got to be one of the most head-scratching fighting games I think I've ever experienced. If you can find a cheap second-hand copy out in the wild, I would suggest picking it up for when you need to throw out some fireballs on the move. Now that we've reached the end of our very important quest into the underbelly of portable Street Fighter games, I can feel my eyes about to burst from looking at so many low-resolution pixels all day. For all their ups and downs, what I collectively love the most about all of these games is that each of them brings something truly special to the table. From humble beginnings in the early 90s to a full high-definition experience with online play in the 2010s, Street Fighter has really come a long way on Nintendo's handhelds, and the two go together like peanut butter and jelly. Anyway, if you're ever going on a road trip or a flight, or you're just teleporting through space-time to save the multiverse, you can count on at least one of these games keeping you entertained in the long haul. Okay, if you made it all the way to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you and your time, and I hope you had fun. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.